The deep black of space had always been silent. For the Galactic Federation, a union of 47 advanced species, that silence was law. Their fleets patrolled the spiral arms, their councils debated trade routes, and their scientists marveled at the natural wonders of the cosmos. But for the last 300 standard cycles, one small, primitive corner of the galaxy had been left alone. The Sol system, Earth, humanity. The Federation remembered humanity. Not with fear, but with a kind of pity. When the Federation scout ships first found Earth, they observed a species tearing itself apart over lines on maps and differences in Sci-Fi Stories. They had barely managed to limp to their own moon. Their warships were tin cans with nuclear firecrackers. The Federation took notes, predicted their self-destruction within 200 years, and left. They filed humanity under Do Not Disturb Will Not Survive. 3 centuries later, no one in the Federation thought about Earth. That was their first mistake. The second mistake happened on a quiet Tuesday, by Galactic Standard Time. The Vorn Hive, a swarm-minded species of insectoid expansionists, had been testing Federation defenses. They launched a surprise raid on the border outpost of Kellenstar. The outpost was a refueling station, lightly guarded by 4 obsolete cruisers and a scattering of defense platforms. The Vorn sent 300 drone ships, each piloted by a single-minded warrior bug. Coordinated through a living neural network, the battle lasted 11 minutes. The Federation cruisers were torn apart. The defense platforms went silent. The station's commander, a Greyford feller named Commander Urich, sent a distress call on all frequencies. His voice was calm, but inside his chest, his second heart was pounding. This is Outpost Kellen to any Federation vessel. We are under attack by Vorn Hive forces. Casualties are 100%. Requesting immediate military assistance. We have 37 survivors in the central hub. Please, anyone. The Vorn swarm did not bother with boarding parties. They wanted the station's antimatter reserves. Their drones began latching onto the station's hull, cutting through with acid-tipped mandibles. Urich watched on his monitors as the red icons of the Vorn surrounded them like a fatal disease. He closed his eyes. 300 years of Federation peace, and it would end here, in a forgotten outpost, eaten by bugs. Then the sensor screamed, a new contact. Not small, not medium, enormous, the size of a small moon. It dropped out of hyperspace without warning, without the usual gravitational ripple that preceded a jump. One moment, empty space. The next, a vessel of dark gray metal, scarred and pitted, shaped like a jagged arrowhead. Its hull was not smooth. It looked like a mountain range had been hammered into the shape of a weapon. And along its flanks, faded but still visible, were markings in a script that the Federation database barely recognized. English. The ship's transponder pinged. The translation came through a moment later. UES Retribution. Earth United Nations Space Command. Registry, none. Status, active. Commander Urich's fur stood on end. That's impossible, he whispered. The humans are extinct. Or pre-industrial. The last report said they killed each other. His tactical officer, a thin-limbed Trillis, tapped his console. Sir, that ship is not responding to hails. But its power signature. I can't read it. It's not fusion. It's not antimatter. It's something else. Something clean. The Vorn swarm noticed too. 300 drone ships turned away from the station, orienting toward the newcomer. Their neural network pulsed with curiosity, then hunger. A big ship meant more resources. The Vorn commander, a bloated queen mind aboard a carrier hidden at the edge of the system, gave one order: consume. The drone ships accelerated. They moved like a cloud of locusts, each one capable of tearing through a cruiser's hull in seconds. The Retribution did not move. It sat there, silent, dark, as if it were a ghost. The first wave of drones, 50 of them, reached weapons range. They fired their plasma lances. Bright green spears of superheated gas crossed the void and splashed against the Retribution's hull. Nothing happened. The green fire spread across the dark metal, then fizzled out. The hull didn't even glow. Urich leaned forward. Their shields. Did they have shields? No shields, sir, the tactical officer said, his voice shaky. The plasma just hit the hull and stopped. Like water on stone, the Retribution now spoke. Not with words, with light. A single beam, no thicker than a finger, shot from a point on its bow. It was not a laser. It was not a particle beam. It was something the Federation had never seen, a coherent stream of exotic matter, folded through 7 dimensions, designed to ignore conventional armor entirely. The beam touched the lead Vorn drone ship. The drone ship didn't explode. It didn't melt. It simply ceased to exist. Every atom of it was shunted into a pocket dimension, leaving behind only a faint blue glow that faded after 2 seconds. The rest of the swarm paused. Their neural network stuttered. The Queen Mind tried to process what had just happened. She had no frame of reference. In 3 centuries of expansion, the Vorn had never seen a weapon that didn't leave wreckage. The Retribution fired again. This time, it was not a single beam. A pattern of 40 beams lanced out simultaneously, each one finding a different drone ship. 40 more Vorn warriors vanished without a trace. No debris, no radiation. Just empty space. The swarm broke. Instinct took over. They tried to flee in all directions, scattering like insects from a bright light. The Retribution waited for 3 seconds, long enough for the swarm to spread out, and then activated a second system. This one was not a weapon. It was a field. A spherical distortion expanded from the ship at faster than light speed, enveloping the entire star system in less than a heartbeat. Inside that field, space itself became sticky, thick, like flying through honey. The Vorn drone ships slowed to a crawl. Their engines roared, but they could not push through the compressed space-time. The Queen Mind's carrier, hidden behind the system's 3rd planet, was caught as well. For the first time, she felt fear. The Retribution turned. Not quickly. It moved with the slow, deliberate grace of something that knew it could not be touched. It glided toward the Vorn carrier, ignoring the few drones that still tried to fire their plasma lances. Their weapons didn't even reach the hull now. The exotic matter defensive field around the Retribution simply unmade the plasma before it could cross the gap. Yurik watched through his station's external cameras. His 37 survivors had gathered behind him, their injuries forgotten, their eyes wide. One of them, a young feller child, pointed at the screen. "Grandfather, what is that ship?" "I don't know, little one," Yurik said. "But I think it came to help us." The Retribution stopped 500 kilometers from the Vorn carrier. The carrier was a living creature, a bioship the size of a city, with a Queen Mind embedded in its core. It had merged with thousands of drones over the centuries, becoming a floating hive of hate and hunger. Its outer hull was covered in eyes, mouths, and weapon organs that spat acid, radiation, and kinetic spines. The Retribution opened a channel. Not to the Vorn, to the station. A voice came through. Human, female, calm, with an edge of cold steel. "Federation Outpost Kellen. This is Captain Helena Vance of the United Earthship Retribution. Do you require further assistance?" Yurik fumbled for his communicator. "This is Commander Yurik. Yes, we require assistance. The Vorn, there are still hundreds of drones. The carrier is still active. Where did you come from?" Captain Vance paused. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "We've been gone a long time, Commander. 300 years, by your calendar. We left Earth on a mission of exploration. A wormhole collapsed behind us. We were thrown into a different galaxy. It took us until last week to find our way back." Yurik blinked. "A different galaxy. There are no sentient species in Andromeda. We've surveyed it." "You surveyed the surface," Vance said. "You didn't dig deep enough. What we found there changed us. We found ruins. A species that died out 5 billion years ago. They called themselves the Architects. They left behind their libraries, their factories, their weapons." On the screen, the Retribution shifted slightly. Its hull seemed to ripple, and from a dozen ports, smaller craft emerged. They were not fighters. They were drones of their own, each one a perfect sphere of dark metal, each one trailing a faint wake of distorted light. The spheres orbited the Vorn carrier, not attacking, just waiting. Vance continued. "The Architects were the first intelligent life in this universe. They spent 3 billion years climbing the ladder of technology. They reached a point where they could reshape reality with thought. And then they got bored. They chose to ascend to a higher plane of existence. But before they left, they stored everything they knew in a vault. A vault that we stumbled into by accident." The Vorn carrier made its move. Desperate, the Queen Mind ordered all remaining drones to merge with the carrier's body. The bioship swelled, doubling in size, its surface writhing with new mouths and new weapons. It fired everything at once, a spectrum of destruction that would have cracked a planet. The Retribution did nothing. Its defensive field absorbed the entire attack. The exotic matter beam, the plasma, the acid, the spines, all of it vanished into the pocket dimension where the Vorn drone ships had gone. The carrier shuddered. It had exhausted its energy reserves for nothing. Vance's voice came again, but this time, it was not for Yurik, it was for the Vorn Queen Mind. She spoke in the Vorn's own language, translated through the Retribution's architect-derived universal translator. You have one chance. Surrender all military capabilities. Disband your swarm. Return to your home system and never leave it again. If you refuse, we will end you. Not just your carrier. Not just your drones. We will find every Vorn ship in the galaxy and unmake them. We will trace your neural network back to its source and delete it. We will leave your species alive, but we will take away your ability to ever threaten another star system again. The Queen Mind screamed. It was not a sound that could travel through space, but Yurik felt it through the station's hull vibration sensors. A psychic scream of rage and terror. The Vorn had never surrendered. They did not have the concept. Their biology was built for consumption, not negotiation. The carrier lunged. It tore itself free from the space-time distortion field. The Queen Mind sacrificed a third of her drones, burning them as fuel to create a temporary rift and shot toward the Retribution. Mouth first, ready to bite the human ship in half, Captain Vance sighed. So be it. The Retribution fired its main weapon. Not the exotic beams. Something larger. Something that made the stars themselves flicker. A cannon that ran the entire length of the ship. A weapon the architects had used to reshape galactic clusters. Vance had promised herself she would never use it. The Vorn changed her mind. A bolt of compressed cosmic energy, the color of a dying star, leapt from the Retribution's bow. It hit the Vorn carrier. And for one long second, nothing happened. The energy soaked into the bioship, spreading through its neural tissue, its weapon organs, its Queen Mind's brain. Then the carrier began to fold. Not explode, fold. Space twisted around it, pulling the carrier's mass into a smaller and smaller volume. The Queen Mind tried to scream again, but her mouth organs had been folded into her own torso. In 3 seconds, the carrier was the size of a shuttle. In 5 seconds, the size of a chair. In 7 seconds, it was a tiny cube of alternates matter, no larger than Yurik's fist. The cube floated in space, inert. The Retribution recalled its defense spheres. The space-time distortion field deactivated. The remaining Vorn drones, less than 50 now, were left drifting, their neural network severed, their Queen Mind compressed into a paperweight. They did nothing. They could do nothing. Without the Queen, they were just insects. Captain Vance opened a channel to the station again. Commander Yurik, we'll send shuttles to evacuate your people. You'll be taken to the nearest Federation world. Do you have any questions? Yurik had 1,000 questions. But one came out first. Why did you come back? You could have stayed in Andromeda. You could have built an empire. You have the power of gods. A long silence. Then Vance spoke, and her voice was softer now, almost sad, because we are still human, Commander. We left Earth as explorers, not conquerors. We found the Architect's power, and for a while, we were tempted. We thought about revenge. We remembered how the Federation abandoned us, called us primitives, predicted our death. Some of my crew wanted to come back and teach the galaxy a lesson. Wipe the slate clean. Start over, she paused. But then we found a recording. One of the architects left a final message. She said that power without memory is just destruction. She said the greatest technology is not the one that can unmake stars, but the one that can build a home. So we built a new engine. We charted a course back to the Milky Way, and we came home. Yurik looked at his survivors. The children were crying, but not from fear. From relief. The adults held each other. On the screen, the Retribution began launching shuttle, small, elegant craft that moved without any visible propulsion. What will you do now? Yurik asked. Now. Vance said. Now we find Earth. We see if anyone remembers us. We offer our technology to the Federation. Not as weapons, as tools. We can heal dying stars. We can reverse climate damage. We can bring clean energy to every world. The architects gave us the power to destroy galaxies. We choose to use it to fix broken planets. The first shuttle docked with the station. Its hatch opened, and a human stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a simple gray uniform. No armor, no weapons. He carried a medkit. He knelt beside a wounded feller and began treating her burns. The other humans followed. They worked in silence, efficient and gentle. They did not boast. They did not demand gratitude. They just helped. The Federation would learn later that the retribution had not come alone. It had brought back something even more valuable than architect technology. A seed bank of every species Earth had lost, preserved in temporal stasis. They had passenger bays full of cloned passenger pigeons, Thai bumblebees, and blue whales. They had soil regenerators and atmospheric scrubbers. They had a plan. Over the next year, the retribution became a legend. Not a weapon. A hospital ship, a school, a farm. It traveled from system to system, offering aid to anyone who needed it. The Vorn, reduced to a single star system and stripped of their swarm military, began a slow process of rehabilitation. They learned to farm. They learned to build, not consume. It was not easy. But the humans stayed with them, patient and unafraid. Captain Vance never gave interviews. She spent most of her time in the Retribution's botanical garden, a massive dome filled with earth plants that had been extinct for 3 centuries. She would sit beneath an old oak tree clone from a seed found in Siberian permafrost and read paper books. Leather-bound, yellow-paged, smelling of vanilla and time. One day, a young fellow reporter asked her, "Captain Vance, why did humans survive? Why did you come back? Why do you care about us?" Vance closed her book. She looked at the oak tree, then at the reporter. "Because we almost died, once," she said. "We had wars. We had famines. We had plagues. We looked into the abyss, and the abyss looked back. And we realized that the only thing worth building is something that lasts." The architects lasted 5 billion years. They left behind weapons that could unmake universes. But do you know what else they left? The reporter shook her head. "A garden," Vance said. "On the edge of Andromeda, there is a planet with no name. The architects turned it into a forest. Every tree, every flower, every insect, they preserved it for 5 billion years, waiting for someone to find it. They didn't want to be remembered for their weapons. They wanted to be remembered for their garden." She stood up, stretched, and smiled. "So that's what we're going to do. We're going to plant gardens. Across the galaxy. In every system. And maybe, in 5 billion years, some other lost species will find our gardens and know that we were here. Not as warriors. As growers." The reporter wrote it down, but she didn't understand until much later. Until she saw the Retribution hover above a dying world, slowly repairing its ozone layer with architect-derived atmospheric processors. Until she watched human engineers teach Vorn drones to build irrigation systems instead of plasma cannons. Until she tasted a real strawberry, grown in a human habitat on a barren moon, and understood that sweetness was a kind of technology too. The galaxy changed after the Retribution returned. Not because humans had become gods. Because they had become gardeners. And they invited everyone to help. As for the Vorn Queen mind, compressed into a tiny cube, Captain Vance kept it on her desk. Every morning, she would tap it with her finger and say, "Think about what you did." Then she would go back to tending her oak tree, and somewhere, in a dimension beyond time, the architects watched. They did not intervene. They did not need to. They had found their successors. Not in the warriors who could unmake stars, but in the people who chose to plant gardens among them.